Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across. It's turned in. It's Pittman who's got it. Livingston leads.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead.
Man, you score.
If we march to
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Hello and welcome back to TalkLivi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club. My name's Ewan and I'm joined by Andy today. The two Callums are missing out once again. It seems that they only appear when we win games. But we again come to you via Zoom call due to the recent restrictions, so bear with us. We are trying to bring you the best content we can. Andy, how you doing?
Yeah, good. As you say, surprise, surprise, the two Callums are here. As usual, they don't seem to appear, as you said, when we lose games, but we are here, so we'll see how we get on this week with the two original again.
On this week's episode, we look back at our game against Rangers at Castle Grayskull. And in our special feature this week, we talk goals that we celebrated that in the end didn't count. Finally, we look ahead to our next league game, a home game with Motherwell at the Tony Macaroni Arena.
It was a trip to Glasgow on Sunday as we faced a Rangers side flying high in the league and in Europe. It was a daunting task for the Lions, who lost last weekend to Kilmarnock. We feared the worst, as inside 15 minutes Livy fell 2 behind, but we stuck at it, and that's how the game ended, with a 2-0 defeat. Good to see a bit of fight in the team, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm just glad the team knew that I had 2-0 on the predictions this week, so decided not to try and properly go for the consolation, but nah. Second half was much improved. We kind of half predicted going to a 3 at the back, kind of similar to what we did at Celtic Park. Didn't really work, to be honest. I think you could see what we were doing when we didn't have the ball. It was 5 and then 4 in front, and when we did get possession, Holt and Pittman were trying to break and support Emmanuel Thomas, but I think we looked really passive first half. I don't think we pressed Rangers when we had the ball. And in comparison, Rangers, every time we got possession of the ball, they were hunting in packs after us. And let's be honest, that's how the first goal comes about. Effie Ambrose doing Effie Ambrose things. It's part and parcel of what you get with Ambrose, isn't it? Sometimes it comes off and he looks absolutely brilliant, and then there's moments like that he gets caught in possession and Aribo's went and tucked away after the kind of initial shot from Defoe was saved. But look, it was always going to be an uphill task after we conceded the second as well. Something I have to give credit to Rangers. They tried not to play in front of us too much. I think they went for the ball over the top quite a lot, and that's how the second goal was really well taken, to be fair, but Defoe's peeled off Guthrie, in my opinion, a bit too easy. He's taken it really well, though, credit to him. But second half, we went back to a back 4. I think Josh Mullen made a massive difference in terms of us as an attacking threat second half. Gave us a bit more legs up the top end of the park, and Forrest added to that when he came on later in the half as well. And to be honest, we probably looked like the team more likely to score second half. I think, obviously Pittman hit the post first half, but he had a header second half. Mullins had one that's kind of been cleared in the 6-yard box. Forrest had a decent chance as well. So it was a promising second half. But the damage was done early on. You look at Rangers' record this season, they've only conceded, 3 goals in the league. When you go 2-0 down so early on, they've improved that side of their game massively, and it was always going to be an uphill task for us. But credit where credit's due, we kept battling away and kind of what we didn't do in the first half in terms of pressing the ball, we did it the second half. We made the game a lot more difficult for Rangers, stopped them getting into any kind of rhythm as well. But yeah, damage is done early on.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said there. I don't think I'm alone in what I was fearing the worst after the first 15 minutes. It was almost attack after attack and onslaught. Disappointing the way we lost the goals, obviously individual mistakes. Ambrose, as you say, is Ambrose doing Ambrose things as usual. But you know what you're getting with him, and the problem with him is, there's a mistake in there, and unfortunately that's came out today against Rangers. Second goal, yeah, listen, credit to Defoe. It's an absolutely brilliant finish. You contender for goal of the season, I would think, a ball over the top, over his shoulder. But from our point of view, again, you mentioned that poor defending. He's peeled off our defence far too easily, and yeah, got in behind. But credit for the finish. After that, I was really pleased. As I say, I feared for us a little bit. I feared we would be on the end of a bit of a tank in the game, but I thought we'd done quite well. And as you said, the second half, I felt we were arguably the better team. We created 2 or 3 good opportunities. Rangers were a bit passive, almost like us in the first half. They were a bit passive. They knew the game was probably over. It's difficult at any time to go to Ibrox, but when you're 2 goals behind after 15 minutes, it's always going to be difficult to get back in the game. But yeah, I agree as well. I thought Mullen came on, offered us a lot of width, good energy down there. I think he's definitely played his way into contention for starting against Motherwell. We early chance in the first half, actually. We've not mentioned it. Jet obviously starting today. He's missed from what looked like less than a yard out, seemed to be on his heels a little bit. I think Serrano done brilliantly. I think this is a highlight of what we get from Serrano just now, is that drive and run down that side, getting in behind the defenders. We saw it against Kilmarnock, we saw it again against Rangers. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to a goal. Pittman's unlucky to hit the post, but if Jet's on his toes there, I think that showed that little bit of lack of match sharpness for him, that he's on his heels, and if he's on his toes, he's putting that ball in the net, and we're maybe making Rangers feel a bit nervous after that. Not to be, but I'm pleased to see that fight and that hunger back. Many a team would have went to Ibrox, fell 2-0 down after 15 minutes and threw in the towel. We stuck at it. We didn't disgrace ourselves at all. So overall, I'm pretty pleased. We weren't expecting anything, but I'm pleased in the end with the performance that we showed.
I have to say, I was a bit frustrated with Jet today. I think I'll take into account, obviously, he's not played a lot of football over the last kind of year or whatnot, but his mobility wasn't great off the ball today, and I don't think he really made it difficult for Goldson and Hollander, compared to, say, what Dykes did last season. I think he gave them a bit of an easy game at times, so I don't know if Tiffany might have caused them a few more issues, just through his movement more than anything, and trying to drag them out of position. But yeah, you could see that there was aspects of kind of rustiness with Jet. But that, as I say, take into account he has kind of almost missed a year of football, so it will take him time to get up and running. But there was aspects of his game today that I found a bit frustrating, in particular first half.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to put that down to rustiness. I know you're not criticising him at all, but I'm going to put that down to rustiness today. We might see a little bit more from him going forward, hopefully, fingers crossed. I've seen a bits in his game that'll suit us well. I thought, especially in the second half, I thought he held the ball up really well, brought players into play. The second half, I felt like we had more forward runners. Mullen down the sides. I think Forrest, Pittman played a lot further forward. We pressed the ball further forward. So I was pleased to see that. The other one, without going down the same avenue as what we've done in previous weeks and going down the whole Stryjek and McCrory argument, Stryjek's come in today and he's done everything that you would expect him to do from a goalkeeper, I would say. I don't think he had much chance with the 2 goals, but he's dealt with everything else. That gives us something to think about going into next week's game, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure it will give the management something to think about. I still think they probably see McCrory as the number 1, though. I think he was brought in at the start of the season for that. And what's it going to do to his confidence if you dump him out the team type thing? Young lad, first time really playing at this level. So it's a decision for the manager and Davey to make. But yeah, I agree, Max. The 4 games he's played, he's granted 2 against Rangers, obviously, and then the other 2 are part-time teams. But granted, he's been solid in all 4 games, so he's not doing himself any harm, to be honest. I agree with you in the sense, second half, and it was the kind of just off the ball runners, really, that made a massive difference. That kind of the attacking side of it for us, kind of already touched on Mullen, on Forrest, but Pittman as well. Pittman doing what he does best, kind of arriving late in the box. I think Pittman actually played quite well today, to be fair. It was probably the pick of the bunch, in my opinion. But yeah, we weren't expecting anything from the game. As you say, first 15 minutes, it's looking like it's going to be a bit of a cricket score, a bit like what Ajax had the other night over in Holland. But we stuck at it. We battled away. Typical qualities of ourselves, and probably unlucky not to get at least a goal back and kind of make it a bit more interesting last 10 minutes. But yeah, we weren't expecting anything, and hopefully we can take the positives from that performance into the game next weekend against Motherwell.
Yeah, do you know something? It's for the first time in a long time, I was praying for the full-time whistle, even though you're getting the 3 points, whatever it is, for the prediction league. I captained Tavernier in my fantasy league, and I had Goldson in there as well. So there's some good clean sheet points. Not to say that, I was hoping for a 0-0 draw. I'm not going to lie, that would have been the perfect outcome all round. But not to be. There was some aspects in the game that disappointed me, no doubt. Defending early doors, the individual errors, but a lot of positives to take for the game for sure. And as you say, hopefully we can take them forward into Motherwell, because that's going to be a massive game.
Goals that didn't count that you celebrated like a madman. We've all done it. We've all been there. Went a bit over the top only to turn around and see it's been flagged for offside, it's been disallowed, or you've lost the game in the end and it didn't mean anything. In this feature, we're going to take a look at some of the goals we've stupidly celebrated, only to look a bit silly in the end and be a bit heartbroken, possibly. Andy, is there one that sticks out immediately for you?
Do you know, when we discussed doing this feature, for whatever reason, and this is by no means the best goal that we've ever scored. In fact, it was rightly disallowed in the end. But as soon as we started discussing it, the one goal that jumped out to me was Gabor Vinci's throw-in against Hearts. And I think it was to make it 2-2 at Tynecastle. Now, the throw-in, probably level with the 18-yard box at Tynecastle's, bounced, missed everybody and went over the keeper. I think Craig Gordon was in goals back then at that point. It went right over him and into the net. Now, I could have sworn it took a touch. I was going absolutely crazy, celebrating like mad in the faces, because at that point, Livy fans, we filled up pretty much the top tier at Tynecastle, where we usually get, and we were right next to the Hearts fans. Now, I was giving it absolute loudly to the Hearts fans that day, only to turn around, as you say, and see that the referee had blown the whistle to give, obviously, a foul or an indirect free kick, because it went straight in. I'd never said another word for the rest of the match. I sat there highly embarrassed, hiding from the Hearts fans that were giving me pelters. Yeah, that one always comes to mind when we sort of discuss this sort of subject.
Yeah, I remember the game. I think it finished 2-1 in the end. Alan Walker scored for us, if I remember correctly. But that would have made it 2 each. So that was the season that Hearts had a lot of money kind of pumped into them, and they qualified certainly for the qualifiers for the Champions League that season, finishing second. You would have been jiggling your boobs about and everything, so that would have been highly embarrassing for you. There's the one I can immediately think of was the season we done the Great Escape under Barchel, midweek game at Easter Road. Ibrox Sakaja, last minute in stoppage time, knocks one in from a yard. There's about 100 Livy fans, me and you both running down the stand at Easter Road. Before we could even get back up to our seats, Hibs had made it 2-1. In the process, you need our good friend Rory's now wife in the head trying to run down the stand. Pretty sure she had to visit a hospital afterwards because you'd hit her that hard. But I remember that one because I just turned round to see the ball looping over into the far corner ahead of her, and I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
you need to
yeah,
walk
yeah.
the whole way round Easter Road to get back out the ground, and I just thought, oh, this is going to be absolutely terrible. But that's one that instantly springs out to me in terms of Livy anyway.
Yeah, that was another one that crossed my head just simply for that background story that I need her basically in the head celebrating, and only just to get back to your seats, turn around and the goal to go in for Hibs. It was almost like a, oh, I don't believe this has just happened situation. You know, we're giving an absolute big licks to the Hibs fans in the new stand there, only for that to happen. Yeah, I think. See, looking back, there's other ones that come to mind that eventually didn't count. Halkett's goal in the sort of playoff against Stranraer when we came from nowhere to take that game into extra time, scoring in the 93rd minute or whatever it was to take that into extra time. I don't think I've seen Ironvale bouncing that much for a goal ever, only to be sort of torn apart in extra time to get relegated in the playoffs. And then the other one...
well, it was Mark Fotheringham away at Falkirk when we were 3-0 down. I remember falling down about 5 rows of the stand when Fozzie went and stuck that free kick in the top corner, and then absolutely deflated at full time after Falkirk had done nothing in the second half and had one counter attack and scored with about 5 minutes to go. That one was a bit heartbreaking. There's quite a few I can think of that are Scotland related.
Yeah, Scotland have the way of really breaking Scottish football fans' hearts. It doesn't matter how it happens, there's always going to be a situation where they'll break our hearts somewhere or another. And it's probably going to happen in the next month or so as well. We're going to get into a situation that we're going to qualify and we'll do something to break our hearts because that's what Scotland does.
The obvious one would be the Griffiths free kicks. I just remember when Griff put the second one in, I felt like I was floating in a moment, and my dad just turning around to me going, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And then when Harry Kane, I think just that 10 minutes of emotion just totally hit me when Harry Kane hit the back of the net in the 93rd minute, and I just started crying. I was like, my emotions were in absolute tatters at that point. But one that might not be quite as obvious was when we were playing Spain under Craig Levein, 2-0 down. They were the current world and European champion. We brought one back. Stephen Naismith scored, and it was a bit like, Christ, we've just scored against the world and European champions. And then I think it was Gerard Piqué scored an own goal, and the entire Scotland team celebrated at the corner flag at the North Stand, down at the West Stand end of Hampden. And I ended up upside down in a dog pile up in the corner, with legs waving about in the air. And then obviously we went and lost the game 3-2, the classic Scotland glorious failure. And then another one that kind of springs out was the qualifiers for the Euro 2016, where Fletcher put us 2-1 up against Poland. And then we heard the news that Shane Long had scored against Germany. And then you could feel Hampden just fell flat when they heard that, because we all thought of Germany against Ireland, that's a banker. And then Lewandowski bundled one in the 94th minute. And I was flying to Portugal 3 days later to watch us play the most glorified qualifier against Gibraltar, which made that all a bit more of a kick in the teeth. But we'll get back to Livy. Andy, you got any others that stick out?
Yeah, this one not so much so because of the sort of the heartbreak or anything, more so the sort of comedy factor in it was the first game back in the Premiership when we went to Parkhead, lost 3-1. Obviously we scored, Scott Robinson scored our first goal back, and I remember turning around celebrating, and the Livy fans, we travelled through in quite good numbers that day, were celebrating as if it was the winning goal. It's one of the funniest and surreal things I've been to, because I was celebrating like it was just scored a winning goal at Parkhead as well, but it was a consolation goal and a 3-1 defeat. So that was quite funny. Obviously a meaningful goal, but it meant nothing to the result. And then the other ones I'll probably look back on is the UEFA Cup games over in Sturm Graz. Okay, yeah, it was a two-legged game. but we were getting beat 5-0 going into the last few minutes of the game, and we scored 2 goals in the last few minutes. Remember watching that and celebrating like mad, running around the living room. I was too young back then, unfortunately, to go to the games. And unfortunately, my parents, well, one of them supports one of the arses from Glasgow, so he wasn't going to take me. So unfortunately, I had to watch it in the house, and I just remember going mad and thinking, you know what, looking back, we were getting beat 5-0. That seems a bit stupid, you know. But those are other 2 games that I look back on. And then going into Scotland again, the one, was it Italy? You'll know better than me because you follow Scotland more than me, Ewan. But was it Italy in the qualifiers when Alan Hutton got done for a free kick that wasn't a free kick? I think it was 1-1 and they scored with the 93rd minute goal. I always remember watching that game, heartbroken that day as well. So there's another few goals that didn't mean a lot to me in the end.
Yeah, the Scott Robinson one, I think when we were talking about that season as a whole and talking about our highlights that season, I actually said Robbo's goal at Celtic Park. It was obviously a daunting task opening day going to play they won 7 in a row or 8 in a row at that point. And, you know, it was just the fact that, we've gone there and we've given a decent account of ourselves. We scored the goal at Celtic Park. Diddy wee Livy. Having been out the top flight for so long, I think to a lot of fans it was just the sentimental factor of it that they were buzzing with. You could say the Sturm Graz game at home. You could even say the goal. We talk about Barry Wilson's goal being one of the best Livy goals we've ever seen, but in the grand scheme of things, we got knocked out in the tie, didn't we? That Scotland game, I remember that fondly, and I still blame my dad to this day for us losing, because we'd parked in the same space the whole of that campaign, just along the road from Hampden. But he decided to point out that we hadn't lost the game at Hampden since we'd parked in that space. So I still blame him for the referee giving that foul in stoppage time that was never a foul. But the noise in Hampden that day was incredible because Italy were the world champions at that point. Barry Ferguson equalised, but what was worse about that is that they planned for us potentially qualifying that day, and the players had to come and do a lap of honour and fireworks after a glorious failure. That's the ultimate. I think for the players that would have been borderline embarrassing, having to come out and do that. But fans had waited to watch them do it.
We've obviously, I mean, although we've supported the club in Scotland for a long, long time, there'll be goals and people that celebrate other goals differently that what we have. So we've probably missed loads and loads of goals. These are just ones that spring to mind for us both. Just before we finish the feature, I think if we were to choose one goal then that meant nothing in the end, that really broke our hearts, what would you say, Ewan? What's your one?
In terms of football in general, it's Lee Griffiths, his free kicks. To me, that game means nothing now. Because at the end of the day, it was a must-win qualifier and we didn't win. And those 2 points we dropped is the difference between us getting a playoff that campaign. That's one of the biggest kicks in the teeth I've ever experienced football-wise. Livy-wise, I'd probably say Halkett's against Stranraer. That was an absolute kick in the teeth because that goal came out of nowhere. In fact, the comeback came out of nowhere. It was Danny Mullen pulled one back in stoppage time and then Halkett's goal. So, for Livy, Halkett's against Stranraer. Scotland-wise, it's definitely Griffiths.
Yeah, you know, someone you've called it exactly. That would be the two I would choose from my time. The Scotland one, I've never, and I don't think I will ever experience the high and the low like that ever. I mean, the stadium was absolutely bouncing. It's the best atmosphere, the best game I've ever been involved with, being in the stands when we went 2-0 up. I don't think I'll ever experience anything like that again. And then I don't think I'll ever experience anything like the low. There was actually grown men crying round about me when Harry Kane scored. So that's definitely up there. And as you say, the Halkett one, considering we looked dead and buried, and then getting that goal going from such that high to going into extra time, feeling really confident that we had all the momentum, and then Stranraer just hit us with a couple of sucker punches, and I think we all went away that day feeling as low as we've probably done in a long time supporting Livy. So they would be the two for me. But as I say, you guys listening, you'll have your own choices. Tweet us, Facebook us, let us know what goals you celebrated that didn't mean anything in the end. It'd be great to hear some stories behind that. Finally, on this week's episode, we're going to look ahead to our next game. It's a home game against an underachieving Motherwell side at the Tony Macaroni Arena. Some may say it's a battle of this season's underachievers, but what do we think going into this one, Ewan?
Yeah, Motherwell, I mean, I predicted them to finish back up last season and finish third again this year, so they've had quite a slow start. The last month must have been quite frustrating for Motherwell as well, with games being postponed due to kind of COVID, and it's nothing to do with them. It's been other squads that have been affected by it. So they had a very good result against Ross County. By all accounts, played very well. 4-0. They can't knock that back in this league this season. So I think they have picked up a bit. Certainly on their start to the season, I think they've started picking up a few more wins and points here and there. So it'll be an interesting one, certainly, going into next week. But we went to Fir Park earlier in the season, and there's absolutely nothing to fear from them. I thought that last year, even though they finished third. I think we should have beaten them the 0-0 at the start of the season. I think we were desperately unlucky not to take something at Fir Park, and then the last game we played against them, the 1-0. I mean, it should have been, if we'd won that game 5 or 6-0, I don't think anyone would have complained. So there's absolutely nothing to fear with Motherwell, and I think we have the tools at our disposal to cause them a lot of problems. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game, because I kind of say this most weeks, but they'll be looking at this game as a potential 3 points. They'll look at us and go, they've not been quite as steady at home this season as they maybe were in previous years. So they'll see it as a good opportunity to get 3 points as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to read too much into the game earlier in the season that we drew. I think we're probably going to face a different animal in Motherwell next weekend. I think they'll be much more at it. I think they seem to have found a shape and a form all of a sudden. Yeah, they've not played in a wee while. They were probably fresh and eager to go at it against Ross County, which they did. It sounds by all accounts that Tony Watt absolutely ran the show. Devante Cole obviously signed with them now, so it gives them a focal point up top that they probably didn't quite have earlier in the season. As you mentioned as well, I think that our home form has certainly fallen off a little bit. It's not bad by any means, but it's not as good as what it has been over the last couple of seasons, and they'll definitely be targeting this game. But so are we, and as you say, we've got the tools at hand. If we can take the performance that we had against Dundee United, for example, even the second half against Rangers, there's no reason why we can't go into this game with confidence. I think it's a big game now. We're going into a run of games that are massive, and that will form our season overall. You know, okay, we done well against Rangers, but that was a bonus game we didn't get anything from. But now we're going into a few games that we have to be targeting for points. We've mentioned it every week. There's not a lot between the teams from 5th place down, and all it takes is a couple of wins in a row to almost propel yourself into that sort of European chances in 5th place. Looking at the form between the sides, I think the last 3 games, I don't think we've lost at home to Motherwell. Is that right? Have we even lost a goal to Motherwell in the last 3 games at home?
Nah, so we won 1-0, drew 0-0, and we won 2-0 the season before. It was Lawless and Halkett scored that game. So, yeah, last 3 unbeaten against Motherwell without conceding. So, hopefully we can carry that sort of form against them into next weekend. How do you see us lining up then? Obviously, we started with a 3, but I think that's more something we kind of use against the Old Firm in particular. See us certainly going back to a back 4 then.
Yeah, I don't think that's in doubt. I think we will go back to a 4. I think the only interesting sort of calls to make are, Ambrose came off at half time. It looked like he struggled in the first half against Rangers there. Brown played the 90 minutes, done pretty well. So there's a possibility. The other one we discussed earlier is the Stryjek McCrory argument, and then depending on Tiffany, if he's fit, does he come back in over Jet? Mullen, I think we mentioned it earlier as well. I think he's probably played himself into the team. Thought he done very well when he came on against Rangers. I think he showed promise in the cup games as well, obviously against lower league opposition, but still showed his worth in gold in terms of cross balls and putting pressure on the opponent's defence. So I think he's definitely one that come in, and he offers us a little bit more attacking threat, I think, in the wide areas. I think you know what you're going to get for Josh Mullen. He'll put good balls into the box, and if we can get players like we've been good at recently, getting midfield runners in the box, running it, coming in late, getting on the end of these, there's no reason why we can't do that. But to answer your question, I think we will go to back four. I think we'll go back to the shape that we're used to, the 4-2-3-1. But there's a few question marks over who plays and where they play.
Yeah, I know you were saying you don't want to look too much into the last game against Motherwell, but the thing that caused them a lot of problems was our 3 in behind in their movement off the ball and their pace. Certainly, if it was up to me, if Tiffany's available, I would have Tiffany back in, because you look at, he's caused Motherwell a lot of problems in the past. Last season, he was, 2-1 defeat. He was arguably our best player. Obviously, the season before that, he went and grabbed a couple of goals against them. I think Motherwell don't have they're not the quickest at the back. And I think maybe someone like Jet might play into their hands a bit. You'll want the ball at the feet, and it allows the likes of Gallagher, Lamy to go and attack balls a bit more, whilst I think Tiffany offers you just a bit of variety in terms of his movement, and I think that could cause him a lot of problems. I agree with you. I think Pat is the post he's played his way straight into the team after his performance at Ibrox, and I think he'll play. Brown's an interesting one. He's not played a lot of games recently. He obviously picked up a wee injury. That was his first game since the game at Celtic Park. And yeah, the goalkeeper one, which we've talked to death about that. So yeah, there's a few decisions for the manager and Davey to make, but I think we've certainly got a good chance of getting something this game. I know you touched on Tony Watt. He's caused us a few problems in the past. Certainly when he was at St Johnstone a couple of seasons back. The big one for Motherwell was Trevor Carson. Keeper came off. That'll be a big miss for them if it's anything kind of serious. So maybe take advantage of that, not having their kind of first choice keeper there as well. But yeah, it's the majority of these games, as you say, the league's so tight this season, kind of from 5th downwards, that it's pot luck some weeks. You really don't know what to predict. But as you say, it's one of those games we've talked to death as well about how we've got a run of games now that could pretty much define our season. And this is, we're getting into that stage now where we need to start picking up some more wins and ideally, hopefully get a couple of results before the next international break.
Yeah, I think you called it with Carson. I believe he's out long term. I think Motherwell are looking to try and bring in another goalkeeper. So that's definitely something that we can potentially look at and take advantage of. I think if they don't get anybody in, then it's worth testing the new keeper out with a few long range shots, see how he copes with it. And I don't want to go down this route again because we've done it to death, the McCrory Stryjek argument, but it's a big subject with the fans just now, and I feel like we have to quickly talk about it. And I know you've kind of said earlier you think McCrory is the number one choice, and I don't disagree with that, but what I would say is we had a similar situation last season, the season before, when Stewart played, Sarkic came in, done well and kept his place. If we're being consistent and if the management are being consistent, Stryjek keeps his place, doesn't he?
I mean, he's not done anything wrong. I can't argue that. And as you say, it's a similar situation to last year as well. But I honestly think to see Robbie as the number one. And I think it's maybe slightly different to last year in that Ross Stewart was our keeper, if that makes sense, and started as number one, and then you've got a keeper on loan from Aston Villa. Aston Villa would expect him to come up here and play. It's maybe a bit like that the opposite way round though. Rangers would expect Robbie McCrory to play. So Yeah, it's a tough one for the manager, but that's what they get paid to do. They get paid to make those decisions at the end of the day. But yeah, Max hasn't done anything wrong, but I just think if they were to go and drop Robbie, I think it could just massively knock his confidence even further. But I do think Robbie's a good goalkeeper, and I think he'll be absolutely eager to right the wrongs of that Kelly game in particular, and start showing us the ability that he's got between the sticks and why so many people rate him so highly. So I would still put McCrory back in personally, but I wouldn't complain if Max went between the sticks.
Yeah, listen, it's a hot topic, obviously, in all the forums and on Twitter between Livy fans. There's the McCrory camp and the Strygate camp, but I think we're all Livy fans. We all want what's best. For me, personally, I would keep Strygate in, and that's a massive about turn for me. I'm a big fan of Robbie, but I think there's been a couple of mistakes, a couple of errors there. If it was any player outfield, they would probably be getting dropped to the bench. I get what you're saying about his confidence, but at the end of the day, Strygate is our goalkeeper. So if we can get him in and playing well every week, then who knows, we might have a really good number one on our hands for next season. But it is a hot topic. It's a difficult one, and I don't envy the task of the management team to make that decision. Moving on quickly, looking at Motherwell just before we go into predictions. They're generally playing quite an attacking formation. I think they started 4-3-3. Cole, Watt and Long, I think, played up front. Quite an attacking setup. There's goals in that team. How do we counteract that?
Well, I always kind of mention this as well when it comes to Motherwell. Stephen Robinson likes to plead about the sexy football his young Motherwell team play, but they know how to mix it and play the physical side of it. I mean, Tony Watt's a big physical unit up top. Chris Long likes to put it about as well. You know, they're no strangers to that. I think you just need to disrupt them. You need to do what we did second half at Ibrox and disrupt them. Don't let them get into any sort of rhythm, any sort of flow. And I think we know how to battle, just about as good as anyone in this league, if not better, when it gets down to being scrappy. So you've got to, I'll use a wee Gary Holt quote, got to earn your right to play. And I think we'll need to do that against Motherwell. If we win the battle, I think we'll come out on top, to be honest. I think it's one of those games for Motherwell.
But you were going to go down the route, if we win the battle, we'll win the war there. I was going to say that's the massive cliche, but there we go. So, moving on then. Predictions for the game. It's a tough one, but Ewan, what are you thinking? You're obviously, I think you might be well ahead of our prediction league now. I think I'm way down at the bottom, lagging behind. So if you're listening and you're taking any tips for us at all, don't listen to me. Ewan, what are you thinking for the game?
I'm going to be positive.
It's not like you.
I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to say we're going to win 2-1.
Okay. I think there's goals in the game. Both teams are attacking, both teams are scoring goals, but I think both teams defensively are leaking goals as well. I'm going to go draw, and I'm going to go sharing 4 goals between us, 2 each. I'm going to go.
Repeat of the first game at Fir Park then.
Yeah, well, listen, I would probably take that, get away from this sort of last 2 sort of games losing. If we can get back to some sort of points on the board, then I'd be happy with that going into the next few fixtures.
That's it for this week's episode of TalkLivi. To check out all our weekly content, go like our page on Facebook and Instagram and hit follow on our Twitter. They can all be found by searching TalkLivi.
You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Just search for TalkLivi and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
So that's it for another week. Thanks again to you all for listening and your continued support of the podcast. But for now, from Andy and myself, we hope you have a great week.
Livingstone, a love will never Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Amberville. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Amberville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.